Los Angeles, 1972. A private dojo. Eddie Bravo's teacher. Jean-Jacques Machado's senior student. A legendary instructor. His name? John Rosetti. Teaching martial arts. For 22 years, 500 students, over 2 decades. Black belts, trophies, championships. Success, by every measure. Then, Bruce Lee walks into his dojo, asks to watch. A class. John agrees, proud, to show. A legend, his teaching. After class, Bruce asks one question, 5 words that destroy everything John believed about teaching. The next day, John closes his dojo permanently. His students are devastated. Why? You're the best teacher we've had. John can't explain, just says, I realized I've been teaching the wrong thing for 22 years. He never teaches martial arts again for 50 years. Nobody knows what Bruce asked until 2019. Joe Rogan interviews John on his podcast. John finally reveals the question that ended his teaching career. Let me tell you about the 5 words that changed everything. 1972. John Rosetti is successful. His dojo in West LA is thriving. 500 students trained over the years. His style, traditional karate, mixed with some judo, some boxing. Practical, effective. His students win tournaments, earn black belts, open their own schools. John is proud. He's created a system that works. His teaching method is structured, step by step. White belt, yellow belt, green belt, brown belt, black belt. Each level, specific techniques, specific kata, specific requirements. Master the form, move to next level. It works for decades. Then, June 1972, a small man walks in during class. John is teaching 20 students, working on kata, synchronized movements, perfect form. The man watches quietly. After class, he approaches John. I'm Bruce Lee. I'd like to talk about teaching. John is shocked. Bruce Lee, the legend, wants to talk to him? Of course, it's an honor. They sit in John's office. Bruce is direct. I watched your class. Your students are disciplined. Their forms are clean. John feels validated. Bruce Lee approves. But then Bruce continues, Can I ask you something? Anything, Bruce asks. The question, 5 words. What are you teaching them? John is confused. I'm teaching martial arts, karate, self-defense. Bruce shakes his head. No. What are you really teaching them? John doesn't understand. Techniques, kata, forms, belt progression, discipline. Bruce leans forward. Let me ask differently. If your student gets attacked tomorrow on the street by someone who wants to hurt them, what exactly have you taught them that will save them? John thinks. They know blocks, strikes, kicks, stances. Bruce presses. Do they? Or do they know choreographed movements in a safe environment against cooperative partners? John feels something shifting. Bruce continues, I watched your students do kata, beautiful, synchronized, perfect. But kata is a dance against an imaginary opponent who attacks in predictable ways. Real violence isn't predictable, isn't choreographed, isn't safe. John is defensive. We do sparring. They practice against resistance. Do you? Or do you practice point sparring, where you stop before impact, where you reset after each exchange, where you follow rules that don't exist in real fights. John realizes Bruce is right. Everything he teaches is controlled, safe, structured, nothing like real violence. Bruce isn't attacking, he's questioning, genuinely. John, I'm not saying your students haven't learned anything. I'm asking, what have they learned? They've learned discipline, respect, tradition, physical fitness, coordination. All good things, but have they learned to fight? John is silent. Bruce continues, Here's what I see. You've taught 500 students over 22 years, given them belts, ranks, confidence. But if tomorrow one of them gets attacked by someone who wants to really hurt them, will they survive because of what you taught? John thinks about his students, office workers, teenagers, parents, good people, learning kata, earning belts, feeling confident. But could they actually defend themselves against real violence? He's not sure. Bruce sees John thinking. Let me show you something. Call your best student, your highest rank, most experienced. John calls David, brown belt, training, for 8 years, excellent technique, competition winner. David enters the office. Bruce stands. David, I'm going to attack you for real. Defend yourself using what John taught you. David looks at John, uncertain. John nods. It's okay, try. Bruce moves faster than David has ever seen. Grabs him, takes him down, controls him in 3 seconds. David can't move, can't escape, can't apply any technique he learned. Bruce releases him. Again, this time, I'm coming. Be ready. David sets his stance, perfect karate stance, hands ready. Bruce moves, different angle, different attack, same result. David controlled in seconds. 5 more times, Bruce attacks, 5 different ways. David can't defend any of them. Not because David is weak or untrained, but because 8 years of training didn't prepare him for this. Bruce helps David up. You're not a bad student. You're actually very good at what you've been taught. But what you've been taught is forms, kata, point, sparring, none of which prepare you for this. David leaves, shaken. Bruce looks at John. Now, multiply that by 500 students, all thinking they can defend themselves because you gave them a belt. John feels sick. Bruce isn't done. What happens when one of them gets attacked, uses what you taught, and gets hurt badly because it doesn't work? They'll blame themselves, think they failed, that they weren't good enough. But the truth is, you failed them by teaching them a false sense of security. John's world is crumbling. 22 years of teaching, 500 students, all given confidence without competence, belts without ability, security. That's false. If you love Bruce Lee stories, subscribe. I post rare stories every day. Bruce sits back down, gentler now. John, I'm not trying to destroy you. I'm trying to wake you up. You're a good teacher. Your students love you. You've built something. But it's built on a foundation that doesn't match reality. John asks, voice shaking, What should I do? Bruce is honest. That's your choice. You can keep teaching what you teach. It makes people happy, gives them belts, confidence, community. Or you can admit that what you're teaching is performance, not protection, art, not application, and either change how you teach or stop teaching. John goes home. That night, can't sleep, replays the conversation, the demonstration. David, 8 years of training, couldn't defend against basic attacks because John taught him. Forms, not function. Kata, not combat. Belts, not ability. The next morning, John makes a decision. Closes his dojo, permanently. His students are shocked. Why? What happened? John is honest. I realized I've been teaching you the wrong things, giving you false confidence that could get you hurt. I can't, in good conscience, continue. Some students are angry. You're just giving up after everything. Others understand. What did you learn? John explains, Bruce Lee showed me that forms and belts don't equal fighting ability, that I've been teaching performance, not protection. I thought I was preparing you for real violence, but I was just teaching choreographed movements in safe environments. That's not enough, and I don't know how to teach what's actually needed. So I'm stopping until I figure out what real teaching looks like. John spends the next year training differently, not in traditional dojos, in boxing gyms, wrestling rooms, judo clubs, places where people train against full resistance, real pressure, actual violence. He realizes Bruce was right. Everything he taught for 22 years was missing. The most important element, reality. 1973, July 20th, Bruce Lee dies. John is devastated. The man who destroyed his career, but saved his integrity, is gone. John writes a letter to Linda Lee, never published, until 2019. Your husband ended my teaching career with one question. I hated him for it, for months. Then I realized he saved me from living a lie, from teaching students things that would fail them when they needed them most. I closed my dojo because I couldn't keep lying to people I cared about. I'm grateful, even though it destroyed everything I built. John never opens another dojo, never teaches martial arts publicly again, but he trains privately, studies reality-based systems, becomes a different kind of martial artist. 2019, Joe Rogan hears about John Rosetti, the legendary instructor who closed his dojo after meeting Bruce Lee, invites him on the podcast. John is 72, hasn't told this story publicly, ever. Joe asks, "What did Bruce Lee say that made you quit teaching?" John explains the whole story, the question, the demonstration, the realization. Joe is silent, then says, "That's the most honest thing I've ever heard a martial artist admit. You gave up everything because you realized you were teaching false confidence." John nods. Bruce asked, "What are you teaching them?" I thought, "Martial arts," but really I was teaching performance, theater, dance, and calling it self-defense. That's dangerous, more dangerous than teaching nothing, because it gives people confidence to get into situations they can't handle. Joe reflects. This explains so much about traditional martial arts. Beautiful, impressive, but not functional, against real violence. The podcast goes viral, millions of views. Martial artists debate. John Rosetti closed his dojo because Bruce Lee asked one question? Traditional practitioners are defensive. He gave up too easily. Forms and kata have value. Reality-based practitioners agree with John. He had the courage to admit what most instructors won't, that traditional training doesn't prepare you for real violence. If you love Bruce Lee stories, subscribe. I post rare stories every day. The debate spreads beyond martial arts to life. How many of us are teaching or learning things that look good but don't actually work? How many degrees, certifications, credentials give us false confidence without real competence? John's story becomes a lesson about integrity, the courage to admit when what you're doing isn't what you thought it was. Bruce Lee didn't destroy John's career to be cruel. He did it because he cared about the 500 students who thought they could defend themselves but couldn't. John understood that, eventually, and made the hardest decision of his life, to stop teaching a lie, even if the lie made people happy. That's integrity. That's courage. That's what Bruce Lee taught, not just to John, but to anyone willing to hear the question. What are you really teaching them? In martial arts, in business, in parenting, in life, are we teaching what we think we're teaching? Or are we teaching performance without substance? John chose honesty over comfort, closed his dojo, lost his income, his identity, his students, because Bruce Lee asked one question that he couldn't answer honestly, and still keep teaching the same way. That's legacy. That's mastery. That's Bruce Lee.